As I continue with this pool sculpture, I am going to be making at least 5 or 6 of these other nymphs. And for the second one, I am starting with this one. Bottom half and top half of the body. Now I've hollowed out both halves, but temporarily, while I'm attaching them, I put some extra clay over the face. And this is just so that no air can escape, and this will help the whole sculpture to not collapse when I'm connecting the two halves. This is why it helps to not have an open space up here, because it would easily collapse otherwise. Now, after I have the two halves mostly connected, I'm going back with some tools and just smoothing out and reinforcing. And probably adding a little bit of clay. I've also made it so the top half of the body is turned a little bit, just like this. And this part is where the arm is going to connect later. Sort of positioning it so the arm is leaning backwards. She actually has a pretty small waist, but a very disproportionately large head, so that will be a special challenge. Periodically having to add some water so the clay doesn't dry out too much. So now that I have the shape of the body pretty much where I want it, I can remove this extra clay and actually add the face now. Now, instead of modeling the face completely from scratch, I'm starting out again with one of my partial nymph face molds that I made before. So this will just make the impression of the face, and then I will add some extra clay. Adding a little bit of extra clay to the existing eyebrow. I'm going to cover that up and sort of make it start out there, because these face molds were actually modeled after different specific Voynich nymphs, so while they are similar, they're not quite the same. But they do save time to get the initial shape of the face. This is another one of these style of nymphs with this really bumpy forehead. And I want to replicate that as well. Just one wrong detail and it all looks wrong. It's a hazard of sculpting these nymphs. Let's get rid of those eyes. I do not like that at all. Making the arm and the hand here. The hands are not very defined, but I'm just kind of making the angle of the wrist. And then the thumb. So I'm making just kind of the suggestion of the thumb, and then the other fingers will be together. And the very last step that I always make sure to remember to do is to make an air hole, because since the inside of the sculpture is hollow, when it goes in the kiln, that there needs to be somewhere for the hot air to escape. Otherwise, it will explode. So I always do that right here so that it's not very noticeable. But this is absolutely critical, otherwise it will explode. And even after it dries, before it goes in the kiln, I always check to make sure that that is still going all the way through. So just some final adjustments there. I had to actually reposition the arm